Welcome to Her Story Matters. My name is Beatriz Chichi. Today, I'm joined by my co-hosts Zara Siddiqui and Marhaba Ali, and we're really happy to welcome Nels Rodwell to the podcast. Nels is a writer, a poet, counselor, and a massage therapist based in the city of Westminster in London. We're excited to learn more about her work and how she helps people feel better in their body and their mind. Welcome, Nels.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us. So, Nels, would you like to tell us a bit about who you are, your personal journey that led you to be a poet, a psychologist, to work with counseling and massage therapy, and anything else really to introduce here to our audience?
Who am I? I love poetry, reading and writing poetry. I love writing, anything from stage plays to song lyrics to short stories and children's books. I love reading non-fiction, especially anything to do with psychology or self-help, anything to do with emotional intelligence. I love stand-up comedy. I love playing cards, different card games and Scrabble. I love houseplants and nature. I love anything to do with water, especially waterfalls. I like fishing. I like candles and incense and bubble baths. So it's just all of the things that you can think of off of the top of your head that make you who you are. And then you realise how unique you actually are.
A lot of people these days, although that they are living quite decent lives, they are enoughly wealthy, they're healthy, they have a family, they have a career, they have friends, but they still feel unhappy. They still feel that they lack a mission in their life. So my question is that how can these people find the mission of their life and how they can find happiness?
So when you align with what your purpose is in life, which might be different to what you think you want to achieve in a financial way or with your career, you know, what is success and what is achievement? So for me, success and achievement is following what you're enthusiastic for so that you're generating enthusiasm to be creative and inspired and excited so that every day you're having a 6 out of 10 day or above so that your day has meaning in it. So what your purpose is what you love to do, what you're inspired to do, what you're excited to do, whatever that is.
How can people find what they are good at or what they are enthusiastic about?
Well, that brings us back to fear, because fear takes a lot of things away from us. And actually, it's about knowing what the fears are. So there are 5 universal fears. They're called the core beliefs, and they're universal to every single one of us. They're the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear of confrontation, the fear of misunderstanding, and the most universal fear of all is the fear of I'm not enough. It's not enough, or there's not enough. And so what happens is that as soon as we become dissatisfied with anything, it's raining, there's no milk, they're 10 minutes late, I can't find my pen. As soon as we become dissatisfied, I know it's hard to believe, but the fear of the 5 are already in play. They're already there. And if you spiral down, you'll spiral down really, really quickly. And so you'll lose your enthusiasm and your ability to want anything, so then you won't know what you want.
I often see on social media mostly people talking about how to recognize if you have a fear of rejection or how to recognize if you're leading down that spiral. And my question to you is, how do we not only prevent us from going down that spiral, but kind of push us out of it if we're already there?
Yeah, so there is a really simple formula. If you get really adept at doing it, you can ladder down within 5 seconds and bounce back up again. So you have satisfaction And then you have dissatisfaction. So 1 minute you're okay, and the next minute you're not because something's happened. And so you're going to very quickly go down through the levels. So dissatisfaction comes first. Then next come all of the negative feelings, such as disappointment, guilt, frustration, annoyance, irritation. And then after the feelings come the emotions. They're bigger, more intense and much more overwhelming, such as anger, sadness and shame. And then if you keep going down, you're going to hit anxiety. Then it's anxiety with overwhelm. Then it's anxiety, overwhelm and burnout. Then it's depression. And there you get stuck. You've gone past a tipping point then. And it's very hard to bounce back. But if you can recognise that you've become dissatisfied and name what you're feeling and why you're feeling it and why that makes you feel that way, you can bounce back up to being satisfied again within seconds. And that's what we're looking for. We're looking to micromanage ourselves. I'll give you an example. I feel frustrated that my friend is 10 minutes late. Why do I feel frustrated that my friend's 10 minutes late? Well, I feel frustrated because it's like she doesn't respect me enough to be on time. It's like she doesn't value our friendship enough to be eager to come here. Oh, that's my fear of not enough. There's not enough respect. There's not enough enthusiasm. Okay, I understand myself now. What can I do to feel better? And so you're already encouraging yourself back up with enthusiasm. So it might be that you'll say to your friend, oh, I felt a bit frustrated that you were late and I'd like you to try to be on time for me again, please, in the future.
And I think even changing the narrative can go a long way. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but the burnt toast theory. I don't know if you've...
No.
So
What is it?
it's basically it's good that I can get your an actual expert's perspective on this. It's this theory that if you change your mindset about anything that happens, your whole life changes. So in that theory, what it says is you wake up and every day you have the same routine. You go to the kitchen, you make a toast, and then you leave for work. But in a certain day, you went to make your toast and the toast burnt. So you had to spend an extra 15 minutes making another toast. But in those 15 minutes that you're frustrated that you have to make another toast when you were supposed to be going to work, it's the 15 minutes that when you were crossing the road, a bus would have gone by. So because the toast burnt, it was kind of a chain reaction to prevent you from doing something else. Yeah. And nobody knows if it's true or not, but having that mindset, people believe, that changes your entire perspective on the things that go wrong in your life.
Yeah. So that's partly manifestation. If you're giving off fear, you'll get back fear. If you're giving off frustration, you'll get back frustration. And so the quicker we can get the negative feelings out, the more present we can be to the magic that's happening all around us. And I can give you an example from my own life. So one day I went to a handmade paper shop and I was looking for some paper that had onions on it because I was writing a poem about onions for the Onion Garden, a place that I like to visit. And I went up to the guy and I said, do you have any paper with onions on? And he said, no. I said, okay. So I chose some other paper that I wanted. I went to the cash desk. And there was a man in front of me talking to his boss on the phone and then talking to the guy behind the counter. So they were having a three-way conversation. And I was quite satisfied for a couple of minutes until I became dissatisfied. I was getting annoyed. And so I laddered down. What am I feeling? I'm feeling annoyed. Why am I feeling annoyed? I'm feeling annoyed because this person's taking a long time. Why does this person taking a long time make me feel annoyed? It makes me feel annoyed because I may not have enough time to go home and have my lunch before I start my sessions again. So then I got it out. I stayed present, so I was no longer annoyed, and I just enjoyed being in my moment. And I looked around and there was a silver bucket on the counter that had lots of rolls of paper in it. And I just looked at the paper and I saw some paper that had onions on it. And so, if I had been preoccupied with my annoyance and the story I was telling myself about the man in front of me and maybe not having my lunch, I wouldn't have been present and available and open to what was actually happening around me.
Something that I struggle with a lot is kind of deciding the balance between I should let this go and I need to tell these people what I think. Like, you know what I mean? Because I think, especially talking about annoyance and talking about those feelings that kind of overwhelm you, it's always kind of like, okay, I can be present in this moment and not, and try to get past this. But when is the line between that and speaking your mind? Yeah, it's like establishing boundaries, essentially.
Yeah. So that's exactly it. It's boundary setting. And so, first of all, we want to try to respond rather than react. So, if we don't think about the process of what am I feeling, why am I feeling it, why does it make me feel that way, if we go straight to the narrative or the story we're telling ourselves, we will tend to react through our feelings. You've really annoyed me now. Why did you do that? So we'll be more aggressive because we're reacting through the feeling. But when we go internal first, well, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? We're taking responsibility for ourselves, to manage ourselves and then regulate ourselves. And that's what it's all about. That's what being an adult is. It's about working with your feelings, to take responsibility for them and to process them and get them out, because that's what we're actually doing. We're receiving data that we're not okay. And it's naming the data specifically, knowing the difference between annoyance and frustration, knowing the difference between embarrassment and humiliation, naming it, going down and then bouncing up. So if it involves someone else, you might want to set a boundary. And because of our fear of the five, because of our fear of misunderstanding and confrontation, it's very easy for us all to feel very attacked very quickly and criticised very quickly. And so if we set a boundary and make it about us and then about what we want, we have the best chance of encouraging ourselves in someone else with an arm around the shoulder rather than a slap across the face. So I'll give you an example. I feel frustrated that you just took my bottle of water without asking, and I'd like you to ask me next time, please. We all have the fear of the five as our core beliefs because we've all been children. And with the best parenting in the world, as children, we are pretty much constantly watched, monitored, judged, criticised, and shamed according to how we're behaving and how the adults view our behaviour, as whether they think we're being naughty or whether they think we're being good. And so because we're powerless as children, we want to stay engaged and attached to our parents so that they can keep us alive. And so we learn how to people please. We learn how to behave in the ways that our parents and the adults and our older siblings want us to in order to gain rewards rather than punishments. And so that's why a lot of the population are people pleasers. Now that works very well for us as children. It's a coping mechanism. We develop really good coping mechanisms to get through our childhood, to keep our parents liking us and loving us and approving of us enough so that they'll keep us around, so that we can grow up. But then if we use those coping mechanisms as grown-ups, as adults, they actually have the opposite effect. So people-pleasing does not work for us as grown-ups.
I wanted to ask, when do you think that barrier is broken down? Because until we're 15, 17, we live with our parents. We learn to be a specific sort of way, and we kind of become comfortable with living in certain environments that expect us to be that way. And for me, at least, coming to uni, no one knew me. I had no idea who I was. I had no idea what was going on. And when do you see with your clients or with people around you that they start breaking down that barrier and being able to go beyond just doing anything to please everyone around them?
we all want to connect with people and we all want to help people. We want to help people and serve people. It's just that people really don't understand what help looks like or what support looks like. And so it's very easy to go into people pleasing rather than helping. So you know you're people pleasing if you're coming from the place of, I don't think I'm enough. So if I do more for this person, I'm hoping that they'll really appreciate me and value me and make me feel validated. And that's outsourcing a need that's coming from fear. So if people said to me, what do you think therapy is all about? I would say I could sum it up in one word. It's about responsibility. How you take responsibility for yourself and what you're feeling. Because we're emotionally driven human beings. We're not thought driven, believe it or not. The other thing is if you said to me, what do you think the meaning of life is? And I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than that. What is the meaning of life? It's enthusiasm. Because without enthusiasm, life is meaningless. And any question that you could possibly ask me, it wouldn't matter what it was, it would always come back to the same central point as far as I can see. And now we're getting to the real core of it. The core of it actually is how strong and secure is the relationship that you have with yourself.
I've heard that anxiety, overthinking, I should say, comes a lot from your inability to trust yourself. When you do trust yourself, you know that regardless of the situation, you kind of know that you can rely upon yourself to get through it. Do you think that's the case of if people are overthinking? For example, for me, I remember I used to be very jittery of how I acted around people. Like, did I talk too much? Did I talk too little? Did I say something that maybe offended them? Did I or those kind of things? What do you think is the best way to kind of tackle that overthinking and that anxiety in group settings?
Yeah, okay, so yeah, that's partly it. The other thing is it's always about fear. You know, so it's coming back to being secure enough in yourself that your opinion of you and what you're saying and what you're doing and how you're behaving and how you're coming across is the most important opinion. So whenever we outsource a need for anything, we're seeking validation from somebody else. So the message we're giving ourselves is their opinion is more important than mine. Yeah. And that's a form of people pleasing. True. So you're giving away your power. It's about thinking and overthinking, being too logical, overanalyzing, going down the rabbit hole, as people call it. You know, I just think, and I go down the rabbit hole. The reason that we go down the rabbit hole is because our thinking will always go negative. The reason for that is because of fear. So I'll explain about the four main drivers. So you see, the issue that we have is that we're all human beings, but we're not taught about ourselves. We're not taught about ourselves at school. And so unless you do a lot of self-help or you come into therapy with a therapist who's very proactive with psychoeducation, as I am, you're trying to play the game of life and you don't know how to, because you don't know yourself. So for instance, as human beings, we have four main drivers. Thinking isn't one of them. So you probably don't know what your four main drivers are. We're trying to play the game of life, the game of the intimate relationship, and the game of parenting, and we know so little about it. So our four main drivers are that we're socially driven. So we're pack animals. We want to connect and be part of groups and be with other people because that's where we feel safe. And that's from our ancestry. And we're sexually driven, so we want to be intimate. We're emotionally driven, so it's our job to take responsibility to manage and regulate our feelings and our emotions so that we don't spiral down into anxiety and depression. and we're safety driven. And that's the reason that our thinking goes negative. Because we're always scanning for the possible threat. And I mean really the emotional threat. Does that person think I'm good enough? Are they going to reject me? Was that a bitchy comment? Do they like me? We're always scanning. So even if you start off feeling encouraged or excited or enthusiastic about something, the chances are you'll talk yourself out of it because you'll look for the threats. So you'll discourage yourself. And as soon as you discourage yourself, you're letting in the fear of the 5. So this is what we're up against. We're up against trying to bounce back from feeling dissatisfied because we're discouraging ourselves to elevate up into enthusiasm, which seems so much harder because you think, I don't have the energy to encourage myself and to be positive and to want things and to be enthusiastic about things and to feel happy. It's so much easier just to moan and groan and complain and whinge and whine and stay down there because you think it's exhausting to be proactive, but actually it's fear and imploded anger that takes away your energy the most. So if you're a people pleaser, then you will be imploding on anger and fear, and that's what exhausts you.
Like the conversations about mental health and all the topics that we talked is very overlooked in the UK and in many other countries in the world as well, even worse than the UK. Why do you think is that? And I want to share something personally. I think it was last year this time that for the first time I knew that I am suppressing my feelings most of the time. And I don't show my feelings. Like if I'm angry, I don't show it. If I don't like something, I just say, it's all right. And like, you know, that overloads you. That puts pressure on you. And and it's very overlooked. And I was never taught about these feelings. I was never taught about what is my character like, or am I an introvert or am I an extrovert, or are these feelings normal or is it not, or am I a strange person, or is everybody else feeling the same way? Why do you think like it's very overlooked, like, and neglected?
Well, 2 things. So going back to the childhood again. So when we were all children, the chances are when we were several months old and we started to become more mobile and experience the world, we would start to feel things. We would start to feel our anger, our sadness, our shame and our fear. And of course, the first thing that our parents would do would be to shut that down. They would repress it. They would say, stop it and don't. Because they wanted us to be okay. They wanted us to be happily playing with our toys, gurgling away, or, and then as soon as we became distressed, they would repress us and say, stop crying, don't get annoyed, don't get frustrated.
There have been discussions that said that maybe the reason why women, and women specifically, are very reluctant to show their emotions is because women have been taught from an early age that they needed to be more polite than men, that they needed to show themselves in a certain way. Do you think that's true?
You've got a really valid point. So depending on how we were shamed for our feelings and punished for them even, if you keep crying, I'm going to send you to your room. And so often for little boys, they would be shamed for crying because they would be called names. And often for little girls, they would be shamed for showing anger. And so then if you can't express your primary emotion, you'll use a secondary one. So often women especially come into therapy and they say, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm crying a lot. Or, my boyfriend shouts at me and I burst into tears. Why am I crying so much? Why am I so sad? And I say, it's because you're not actually sad. You're probably angry. you're probably just furious. You've got years and years of anger and resentment and frustration built up. And often for boys and men, they come into therapy and they say, why am I so angry? I'm angry all the time. I've got road rage. My parent or my wife thinks I need anger management classes. And I say, it's because you're not angry. You're probably just really sad. But it's shame that stops us from being able to express what we feel. And on the subject of that, what I find fascinating about sadness and crying and anything around that is that when we shed tears, it's a biological function, right? It's physical, it's physiological. Our tears actually contain the cortisol that pumps around our body when fear is controlling us, so when we go into fight or flight, or when the vagus nerve gets dysregulated. So crying is a way of cleansing the cortisol out of our body to calm us down. And yet so many people will stop themselves from crying. You see it all the time. Sorry, I'll stop. And it's so important to be able to actually have a really good cry and let it all out. And people tend to feel really relieved and released and cleansed. And some people even say they feel quite euphoric after crying.
And why is it so embarrassing to cry in front of other people? Because I've never been able to do it, especially in public. Because if someone says anything, or if you're really frustrated, it's so hard to be like, I'm just gonna cry now,
Yeah. So if you're frustrated, you'll go to tears rather than being able to demonstrate your frustration. How you would, so first of all, you go inward with your bit of connection. What am I feeling? I'm feeling frustrated. So why do we do that? Why do we need to go down and process the feelings? So going back to our heart, the reason is because when we process our feelings, we get them out. So we don't feel them anymore. And science has proved this. I mean, it's quite mind-blowing. Science has proved that when we feel any feeling, whether it's a positive one or a negative one, that feeling only actually lasts in us for up to 90 seconds. And then it will disperse unless we hold on to it. And of course, it's very hard for us to hold on to our positive feelings because we're safety driven, so our narrative will always go negative. And it's very easy for us to hold on to our negative feelings because we'll spiral down and we'll flop into fear, and then we don't know how to get back up again. But actually, if we name the feeling specifically and process it, we can let it go, so that when we remember what happened to us, we can remember the memory without the memory bringing up the feelings and the emotions associated with it. That's how we heal from our trauma, from our past.
I've noticed that a lot of adult men and women feel like going to therapy and exploring those topics in mental health is something to be ashamed of or something to be embarrassed of. So normally when you tell someone, have you ever considered going to therapy? They'll take that as an insult.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and how do you think is the way, as a society, but also individually, to change that perception that everyone needs to know about their mental health and know about their mental processes and their body?
Yeah, and that process, know about themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Know about their characteristics, know about their feelings, know about their emotions.
It's about the quick fix, isn't it? So people are looking for a quick fix, often from pharmaceuticals or through addiction. So, how we generate and go up, from enthusiasm to a bit of excitement and happiness and appreciation, and then up into inspiration and creativity, and then up into joy and awe and wonder, and then up into bliss, which is where we are in heaven, as opposed to down in hell, which would be, the bottom would be suicide. My life is so meaningless, I want to end it. And at the top is heaven, I'm in a state of bliss. We'll go for the quick fix. With both, whether you're trying to go up or whether you've gone down. So it's antidepressants and things like that if you've gone down, and addictions such as alcohol, spending money, porn, gambling, drugs, nicotine, to give you the high. But of course, when you come down, and we're all going to come down to being dissatisfied again, because we're not all Buddhas, then we go straight down past the feelings, straight into fear and shame.
In this world that, especially in London, I haven't seen a city like this in my entire life, where everyone's working, everyone's on the go, everyone's trying to do a million things at once and work out and go to school and have a part-time job and write poetry and write your novel and try to take care of your kids, but also keep your mental health in check and have 8 hours of sleep every single day. For those people that are on the go constantly and trying to find ways to feel happy in a very short amount of time, what would be your advice for them?
Going back to fear and what fear takes away from us. What fear takes away from us is that it scatters our minds. So you're going into the realms of ADD, ADHD now. So we become very scattered, very forgetful. We might become quite hyper. And we lock into the universal fear, which is there's not enough time. And time again, when we find the tipping point the other way, when we get good at micromanaging our feelings and micromanaging ourselves, what people realise and recognise at some point, and it's a moment of joy and wonder when it happens, is that time seems to slow down. And if you think about it, you do notice when it speeds up and slows down.
Mm-hmm. And would you say it's a constant, like it never stops? You'll have to, the rest of your life, keep micromanaging.
You're micromanaging because it's all about the little things. It's about the feelings. Our feelings come first. Our feelings are very different to our emotions. Our emotions come from the unconscious, subconscious and conscious, and they come right through and they're overwhelming. They can be very triggering. Our feelings in our ordinary life, they're only in our conscious. They pop up first. And if we deal with that data very quickly and bounce back up again, we can just stay much more present. And then we find the magic. We find the extraordinary in the ordinary. Just when we're standing in a queue in a paper shop and we find some onion paper.
We talked about crying as a form of cleansing and detoxifying our emotions, our negative emotions.
Yeah.
What are some other ways that people can do after a long day at home and help themselves to detoxify and to forget about all the positive or negative things happen to them during the day?
So first of all, if you've been micromanaging yourself through your day, you would have been getting those feelings out so that they're gone. If you've been forgetting to do that and you're looking back on your day and you're remembering the talk with your boss and how frustrated you were and being on the phone to your mum and how sad you were, you can process those feelings then by doing the what am I feeling, why am I feeling it, and getting them out. So that then you'll sleep better, because we dream in order to process the emotions and feelings that we haven't processed when we're conscious. That's why our dreams tend to be nightmarish or night terrors or very negative, because we're trying to get the feelings out of our bodies, just like we get any other toxin out of our body when we sweat, when we bleed, when we blow our nose. It's the same with our feelings. We're wanting to get those negative feelings out as quickly as possible so we can let them go. And so what we're looking for is the quickest way to improve your day, your Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So it's understanding that we have 3 choices. And if you think about it, in your ordinary day, you'll make probably thousands of choices, most of them quite small, maybe some big ones. There are 3 types of choices that we make. One of them generates enthusiasm, and the other 2 generate fear. So this goes back to the people pleasing. So the choice that we make that generates enthusiasm is I want to because I want to. I want to because I'd like to. I want to because I'm enthusiastic to. if you're going to go down the people-pleasing route, you'll be making this choice. I don't want to, but I will, because if I don't, I'm scared that. Or I'm going to avoid that, I'm going to disengage from that, and I'm going to detach from that person or that thing. I'm going to avoid going to the gym because I feel too fat. I'm going to avoid that person because they were rude to me. And so if we're avoiding, detaching and disengaging, we're engaging with the fear of the 5. And if we're doing something that we don't want to do because we're frightened of other people's reactions, we're engaging with the fear of the 5. But if you're, I want to because I want to because I'm enthusiastic to, you're staying satisfied. So that's how you can immediately improve your day. And you'll know, because when you end your day, if you score it out of 10, if you're scoring a 6 and above, you know you've made mostly I want to choices. If you're scoring 5 or below, you've made too many fear-based choices. And no choice is the wrong choice. No choice is a mistake. If you're frightened of making a choice or making a decision because you're frightened to make a mistake or the wrong choice, you're just generating more fear for yourself. So I don't see any choice as being wrong or a mistake. But if it is a fear-based choice, you're going to go down. And then it's about bouncing back up again.
Is there such a thing as not being anxious or not being depressed whatsoever? Or very little, I should say.
Yeah. So once you get really practiced at micromanaging and using the bid for connection and laddering down and bouncing back up and being aware of your own personal addictions, you can encourage yourself to be enthusiastic and go up the ladder into happiness and joy and appreciation and creativity and inspiration and all of those things much, much easier. And you can stay there for longer. And then when you do come back down, you've got the self-awareness of yourself because you're much more introspective rather than thinking about what does she think of me? What does he think of me? Do they like me? Does he fancy me? You know, am I coming across as being polite enough? You're much more introspective, so you're sort of more meditative. That's why we've been meditating and doing yoga for thousands of years, because it's all about going inwards so that we're thinking, well, what do I think? What do I want? What do I feel? What would I like?
Why not end this episode with you reading one of your poems to us, and then maybe talk a little bit about it?
Okay, I would love to, yes. So we talked briefly earlier about clinging to things and trying to control things and wanting things to last forever. And really it's all about releasing and letting go and accepting the temporariness of everything. And so this poem is a poem about loss, and it's called Wanting More. I wanted to pen you some words to tell you that the weather's warmer now. The tulips are slowly showing through, and I remember they're your favourites. This year, they'll be mine too. I suppose I just want you to know that I don't cry every day anymore. And I smile a lot too about some of the things that we did and some of the things that we wanted to do. I want to be real and admit there are still lots of times in a day when something I hear or something I see should be shared with you, and I wish I could share it with you. I'm trying so hard to let go, to ease some rite of passage, but part of me's holding on, my hand on the handle of a closed door, wanting more.
Beautiful. Nels, Thank you so much for coming here. I absolutely loved our conversation. It was such a pleasure, such an honor to have you in our podcast. Are there any messages you'd like to tell our audience? Maybe about advice, how to deal with what's to come to every woman from every age, from every background? And what's your personal way of doing it?
Yeah, I would say seek connection through your own independence and connecting with the relationship you have with yourself first. Generate your enthusiasm by knowing who you are, and who you are and what your purpose is what you're enthusiastic about. And that's what will make your life meaningful.
This was all from us today. If you liked what you heard, please remember to follow us on Instagram at her_story matters, YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok, where there will be many more episodes like this one.